Hello and welcome to another episode of Shoot the Work with Lewis and Jason.
Hey guys.
Took you a wee second there. Um,
Yeah, everything's running a wee bit behind as soon as you hit record, but we're all good now. It's found what it's supposed to be doing. It's doing its job. Thank God for that. What are we doing?
so today we are going to be talking about 205 Live, the Cruiserweight division. Um,
Yep, we are doing the snoozer weight division. Yes, we are.
yeah, we thought now was a good time to do this. We've been speaking about doing this episode for a while, but at the time of recording, it's currently the 3rd of December, and we are about 4 days removed from the 4 year anniversary of 205 Live debuting. So I thought, what better time to do an episode talking about it. So with 205 Live, I mean, we're kind of mentioning the show specifically, but the whole sort of cruiserweight division, that made its initial comeback with the Cruiserweight Classic tournament that they did. Um, way back in what was it, 2016, I believe.
Well, yeah,
Um,
4 years ago.
yeah.
Um,
Um, oh yes, of course.
you knew that though.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah. So they did the tournament, and it was the first time, at least in a very long time, the first time I can remember them doing, like, WWE doing a sort of tournament like that, because it's not something that they really tend to do. Because I mean, you had guys from all over came to appear in that. You
Yeah,
had guys like um, Brian Kendrick, T.J. Perkins, who he would obviously go on to eventually win it. But you had loads of different guys. Most notably for me, the fact that Kota Ibushi was in that tournament was crazy. Obviously, Kota Ibushi, for those of you who don't know, was one half of the Golden Lovers tag team in Japan, which was him and Kenny Omega, and he was very big. He still is very big in New Japan currently. But yeah, so they had a lot of names, and it's not something that we've seen a lot. We've never really seen them do that before, and we've not really seen them do it since.
yeah, no, I agree. But at that time, they had a run a few tournaments around about that time because was that not round about when like the Mae Young Classic started and all that kind of stuff as well. So they were putting on quite a few different things like that. And to be fair, the cruiserweight um like tournament that they had on was a good idea. It was
Hmm.
fresh, it was new. They had a lot of names that you knew, some that you didn't, but you could maybe tell they were trying to put them over because they realised they were talent. Um, from that point though is where it all went downhill because the tournament itself was great, but then to actually try and base a whole show on cruiserweights after that, for me, it's just not going to work.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, when right after the tournament, obviously, as I mentioned, T.J. Perkins won that. And I think people did really seem to like him at first. I mean, when he first won it, but at the time they had the cruiserweight division mainly appearing on Raw. So before they actually started producing the show, because they did the tournament before they
Yeah,
had 205 Live set up. So initially they were appearing on Raw, and then when they started the whole storyline with T.J. Perkins and Brian Kendrick, that was quite entertaining. I remember watching that, and I did kind of follow that storyline, but because it was on Raw and I was watching Raw anyway, I
yeah,
think because I mean, I'll be honest, I've not watched a lot of 205 Live myself, which I think is the same can be said for a lot of wrestling fans, to be honest.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I think, yeah, when they had it on Raw, it was a lot more. They had a lot more engagement for it and things. I think it was more when they exclusively started having them appear on 205 Live. I think that's when it kind of really started going downhill.
Well, yeah, but before that, before they had the 205 live show, everybody was hating on it, and I was one of them as well because remember they were treating it like it wasn't even WWE. So like a cruiserweight match would come on, they'd be like, right, let's redo the ring, and it was the
Yeah.
205 ring,
Oh
and
yeah.
and like it was weird like because you had like they would always have like an ad break, and then they would come back and it was purple ring, like we're getting a cruiserweight, and it was just
I
really weird.
know. It
Um,
was strange.
it was almost like the cruiserweights weren't even part of WWE. It was like some sort of random company, and they get to wrestle like for one little slot on Raw. It was
Yeah.
just really, I just didn't like how it was treated so differently. It was almost like the outcast of WWE already before you've even started.
Yeah.
Um,
Plus, it's strange because
yeah,
with 205 Live, I mean, I do get, having a certain sort of style of wrestling, when you are
yeah.
a cruiserweight. But I mean, it's something that you and I have spoke about personally before. With the whole cruiserweight thing, it doesn't really make as much sense to me having it at 205 because you look across at the likes of UFC. 205 is like light heavyweight. I think, or is it lightweight maybe or middleweight? It's not their lightest weight that they've got isn't 205 pounds, which is just kind of strange to me.
Well,
Do you
205
think?
is like is that not like John Jones and like
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
This is the thing. It's just strange to think that guys in real life that would absolutely deck you would
yeah.
be in WWE considered a cruiserweight. It's strange to me
Well, yeah.
that's the sort of the setup that they have. Um,
Well, yeah.
so I
To be
mean, really, I personally I don't see there being a massive need for it
yeah.
to be
Well,
separate.
I don't like having it like with that. It's like because you're just sort of cutting yourself off. Like only these guys can wrestle. It's like cutting it off. It's hard to add more talent into it, and it's hard to as well like take away from it as well. So like
Mhm.
obviously we've got like your Buddy Murphys um and Cedric Alexander and people like that who are on the show, and then they're now a main roster. But it's really hard to take away from 205 Live to go into the main roster because after that you've got to then find wrestlers that are under this 205 weight limit to bring in. Um,
Mhm.
and it limits yourself. Again, TNA Mark coming up, you know what I mean? But they had the best sort of idea. They really did. That was the most over new division that you could probably ever have, and that was the X division because
Yeah.
their big tagline when they brought it out was it's not about weight limits, it's about no limits. Um, so anybody could go in. That's why you had Samoa Joe doing front flips and stuff.
Yeah. It's more just a sort of extreme rather than high flying smaller guys. Because again, I just quickly fact checked there. I'm the new puller upper guy. For weight limit in the UFC, light heavyweight upper weight limit is 205.
Yeah.
So basically, everyone below the heavyweight class would be considered a cruiserweight in WWE. So you think about who that applies to. You think about Conor McGregor, Habib Nurmagomedov, John Jones, Alexander Gustafsson before he went up to heavyweight.
Yep.
It's just strange to think that these guys in WWE would all be considered cruiserweights
Well,
because in real life they could all fucking deck you. So
well, that's where it comes into question. They always say that WWE do this, and it probably proves it now, is that they always make everybody taller and heavier than what they actually are. So look at these guys. Look at the guys that are actually on 205 Live, right? Those are never, they're well under 205 pounds, definitely.
yeah,
Um, where you get some of the guys in the main roster who are the same sort of size and build of a Gustafsson or a John Jones, and they're billing them at 250 plus. You know what I mean?
I know it's like, what the hell are you packing in your trunks that's added on that extra weight? Because there's no way in hell you're 250 pounds, AJ Styles.
Exactly. AJ Styles could be on 205 Live, but they've
Yeah,
got.
I know. See, this is something I was going to get onto anyway. With the sort of like, if you're going down the route of saying, right, so everybody under £205 is going to be on this show. Is it pounds? £205? Is
Yeah,
that what? Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
yeah. So if you're going down that route of saying that that's why you're putting these guys on a separate show because they're smaller than the rest of them. It seems like such a simple thing, but the fact that they didn't have any of the big stars who are that weight go over, because I remember seeing a lot of people talking about it at the time that when they brought, because obviously they debuted it in 2016, they debuted the show, and you had a couple of quite entertaining guys. I mean, you had the likes of like excuse me, Rich Swann, Cedric Alexander, Brian Kendrick was phenomenal.
Mustafa Ali was in there as well.
Mustafa Ali, Buddy Murphy. Oh my God, Buddy Murphy's phenomenal.
Hmm.
You had all these really entertaining guys, and they couldn't get attention to it. So then they weren't really investing too much because they weren't getting the attention. But then they then brought Rey Mysterio back, and everybody was like, "Oh, so they're going to put Rey Mysterio there because it's Rey Mysterio. People are going to watch it just because it's him."
Yeah,
And then they didn't. They didn't, and it was like, what? Wait, why are you not putting Rey Mysterio there?
yeah,
Because it's not got enough attention. We'll put him there, and it'll get it. Like you're not making any sense.
yeah. The thing is, when you look at it, Rey Mysterio was a cruiserweight champion back when they had a cruiserweight championship the last
Exactly.
time. But when they did that, they had the cruiserweight championship and that sort of those guys that were in that sort of division. They had it as part of SmackDown. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So I just don't think there's enough interest, and I don't think it's big enough to have its own show. I just don't.
yeah. No, I mean, I think you're right, but I think it could have potential if it wasn't for the fact that they don't do anything else like that. I
Yeah,
mean, because see, in reality, obviously, we've it's been well documented that credit to Ross Tweddale from Cultaholic, but Vince McMahon likes big sweaty men, and it's been a thing for years that smaller guys don't get the same push that your Braun Strowman, your Brock Lesnar,
yeah,
these sort of super heavyweight guys get because of the way that they look, which I mean that in and of itself is so dumb because some of the best wrestlers in the world aren't that size.
yeah,
But at the same time, if you're going to separate your divisions like that, you need to do either all or nothing. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. You either do it the way that UFC do it, and you have each weight division, you have a champion of each division, and you have everybody stick strictly to that division, or you don't do it at all. And like I say, I mean, obviously it'd be easy for us to turn around and go, oh well, they just shouldn't have done 205 Live. They should have just kept it on Raw. Obviously, we're not going to have much of a show saying that, so we'll kind of try and expand on that a little bit. But I think realistically, that probably would have been the best option for them, is to
yeah.
just have it be part of Raw. And the whole ring thing, they really didn't need to do that.
No,
There was no need
no.
to go to an advert for 10 minutes and change all the color of the ring ropes. Like no one cared. It didn't
Hey
make a
everybody, we're
difference.
having a cruiserweight match. Like we don't need it.
I
Like,
know.
but yeah, what we really want to say is that the best thing to do is keep it on Raw and don't change the ring and just have it as part of the program. And who knows, it may even fill up that third hour. You
See, I know. See, that's what they should have done. Because as well, I mean, you think about there's so many things that just seem so simple with it. Like, for
know?
example, like what you're saying, a common criticism since Raw went to 3 hours was that they don't need 3 hours of Raw. Nobody needs 3 hours of Raw. Nobody needs like a full Avatar length movie of Raw every single Monday night. There's just no need for it. So yeah, okay, have the specifically put the last hour is going to be the cruiserweights or whatever it is. That's fine. But just to touch on what you said, I actually think that would have been a much better idea. Is it's because it's all about branding at the end of the day. So
Hmm.
instead of saying, all right, these are the cruiserweights, these are the high flyers, and they're going to be under, they're all under 205 pounds, and all this sort of stuff, have it like an X division
Yeah,
sort of thing, or I mean, even go obviously because you can't just copy TNA's idea, but even like have like a sort of extreme version of wrestling, like a sort of not an ECW reboot, but something kind of similar to that that's a bit more gritty and just a bit more mental. Really, you see the sort of spot fest and stuff because you put somebody like Paul Heyman and Triple H together running that would be fantastic. They would produce a phenomenal show with that
mhm,
sort of theme. And you can have your guys like, Cedric Alexander, Mustafa Ali, these really high flyers, these spot monkeys that do all these crazy,
yeah,
crazy moves. But then it also opens up the gates for people who maybe don't do all that sort of stuff, but they can, brawl. Like, for example, your Enzo Amore, who ended up going there
yeah.
he's not going to do a 630 senton, and
Well,
all these crazy moves, but
yeah.
he can brawl and he's really entertaining, so you can still put him there.
You even had like Drew Gulak at the time, the anti cruiserweight. He was
Yeah,
putting people in arm bars and stuff when they were trying to do front flips. But if you keep it on a show like SmackDown or Raw, or if you keep it on one of those, it means that these people can sort of come in and out of the division whenever they want, which is good. So you can have
mhm.
like Cedric Alexander doing his doing his main roster stuff, but then he can come back to the cruiserweights where now it's like you're either on the show or you're not on the show. You know what I mean?
I
You're
know.
either on there or
Right.
you're on Raw and you're doing your own main roster stuff.
I know, and I think there was definitely a couple of bad decisions that sort of led to people just totally giving up on it. Enzo Amore was one of them.
He was great, man. People actually watched it. I don't even tell me they didn't, because people
Okay,
actually watched it.
right. I will admit I watched it when
Right,
he was, but
right.
right. To be fair, I was watching it when Neville became champion,
No, that was
and
also
then
a good champion.
he was. Oh, they could have built that entire division around him, and they did for a long time. He was the guy, and then Enzo Amore beat him, and then that was it. Enzo was champion, and then Enzo then obviously got released, unfortunately, because of the whole allegations thing. We'll not get into that, but so it then gets vacated again. This is now what the second time it's been vacated, and then I think who is it? Is it Rich Swann then wins it from there, and then he gets released as well, and it was just sort of a bit strange, really, the way
Yeah.
that they sort of set it all up. Because
Well,
hold on, I'll quickly pull it up,
Enzo
and
Amore was going to be good though, because he was like, he's not a cruiserweight like as in like flips and stuff, but like he was going to be a good heel champion. And then if they had Neville still going at him and Neville to win, then yeah, great. But he gets released right at the point where you don't want to be released, so you shouldn't be getting released. And
yeah,
then Rick Swan gets it, as you were saying. Once you pull that up and confirm it, but I think it was right. And then he,
yeah. So right, Neville had it. Akira Tozawa beat him, and then Neville got it right back. Then Enzo Amore beat him. Then he and Kalisto traded it back and forth. Enzo had it. He get fired, and then Cedric Alexander beat Mustafa Ali in the tournament final at WrestleMania 34. Which, again, this was another kind of bright spot because they gave them time to put on a phenomenal match at WrestleMania 34. Cedric Alexander and Mustafa Ali. Fair enough, it wasn't the kickoff show, but it's expected now at this point that would happen. But it was a great match. Everybody was talking about it as being one of the best matches of a WrestleMania card, which was a really big deal. Was a 205 live match.
Hmm.
And then again, they didn't capitalize on it. They didn't push it. And then obviously you then had Buddy Murphy win it at Super Showdown. Again, another really kind of
Hmm.
bright, shining moment because that was obviously in Australia. So they had the massive crowd reaction for Buddy Murphy. And then again, they didn't really do anything with it.
Yeah, that's the
They were
thing.
still
That's
just exclusively appearing because they're giving them these big pay-per-view moments that gets all these eyes on them, but then they're never appearing on anything other than 205 Live, and people aren't watching it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's because the show itself it doesn't get me invested. Like I tried to watch a couple like after, and I just couldn't. It wasn't. I couldn't get into it at all. Really, it's not really so much the it's not the talent because the matches are decent. I think
Yeah.
there's a lack of story, a lack of meaning, a lack of what I mean. It's just here's a bunch of cruiserweights going to put on some matches. This is the best cruiserweight, so he's got the belt, and you're like, right, okay.
Well, I mean, to be fair, you did just kind of describe wrestling,
No,
but
but like these guys have no personality, is what I'm saying. Like,
no, I know. But I think the problem with it is because people aren't watching it. They're not able to connect with the fans because there aren't that many fans to connect with.
that's
I
very
think
true.
I think that's where they kind of suffer because I mean, if you actually watch it, I mean, like obviously they had somebody like Enzo there who was a really big personality, but then even before that with Neville, I mean Neville's whole thing where he looked kind of like Gollum and was this total badass. It was brilliant. He was like he was cool as shit.
Yeah, I know we'll not get into him further for reasons that again we'll not get into. But Jack Gallagher was also in there. He
Yeah,
was entertaining at the time. Not so much now,
yeah.
but yes,
And I mean,
he was at the
even
time.
you said it yourself, guys like Drew Gulak when he was doing the whole anti-cruiserweight thing, and he was he was given like PowerPoints as to why you shouldn't do high risk moves and
Yeah.
all this sort of stuff, and it was really entertaining. And then I don't know, like I say, I think they would have definitely benefited from being on Raw more so than just being like title it as Raw's third hour and have this division be at the sort of forefront of it. And I don't mean at the end of the 2 hour mark, you come out and go, right, that's Raw finished, so now we're going to do this. Just have it that everybody commonly knows that the third hour of Raw is when we're going to see these people. Because you mean you never know, it could help ratings. Because you see it all the time nowadays where Raw is losing a lot of viewers at the third hour because they're
Yeah.
like, ah, well, we've already had all the setup. We know what's going to happen, so we'll just stop watching. If you have the 2 hours be Raw and then the third hour is something different, people are like,
Mhm.
oh,
Well,
I'll maybe just I'm watching this anyway. I'll stick around and see what happens in the third hour rather than doing a whole different show and everybody's aware it's a different show. You're
mhm.
stopping because I think it was on Tuesdays after SmackDown, wasn't it? So they're closing down SmackDown, they're changing all the ring, and now it's 205 Live, and everybody's like, all right, okay, no, bye,
Yeah.
click, and they're away. Do you know what I mean? And
Well,
it's
that's the thing as well. Like, if you go back to like WCW, because they had the best cruiserweight division like ever.
yeah,
Um, and when you go back to that, they just had it as part of Nitro, and they had no sort of big fanfare, change the ring. Oh, it's cruiserweight time. Like they just went now for a cruiserweight match, and we've got Chris Jericho and Eddie Guerrero, and you're like, cool. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And like that's what I mean. Don't even have it as the third hour. Just have a match a week in there. You know what I
sure,
mean? Like if you have a 20-minute, half an hour match in there per week, then that's another half hour that you filled of the third hour. So like
exactly. I mean, and as well, like the whole sort of separating the divisions. Like I say, I'm a firm believer in you either need to do all of it or do none of it. You can't have it both ways where you separate that part of the division, but then everyone else is free to do whatever you want. I
yeah.
think personally, I think it's a good idea to just not separate the division like that with
Uh-huh.
weight because
Same.
it's not something that they're going to enforce throughout the rest of the roster. So there's no point in doing it
Same.
with specific guys.
Yeah.
But I think I mean, it's like what Liam was talking about on that WCW episode
Oh
we
yeah.
did with what they did with the cruiserweights in WCW. The mistake that they made with them was that they were all really really good, but they only ever fought each other. They never fought anybody else.
Mhm.
And I think that could have been interesting to see, especially with the sort of landscape of WWE. And like I say, everybody is well aware that Vince McMahon has a preference for
Yeah.
big sweaty men. So if you have the sort of cruiserweights come together and sort of they start going after world titles, they start going after Braun Strowman and
Mhm.
Brock Lesnar and these sort of bigger guys, obviously wrestling law dictates that they're not going to be able to take them on themselves. But if they come together and gang up, you could have like there's tons of storylines you can do with that sort of thing.
Well, yeah.
And I think they really really missed a trick not putting Rey Mysterio with them
Yeah.
because I think it just makes sense that he would be
Yeah.
there.
Loads of stuff happened to the cruiserweight division just to kill it. Like loads of releases, bad timing.
Yeah.
Uh, like as we said, Enzo Amore, Neville. Then they tried to resurrect it, Austin Aries, and then he he lost his mind and got released.
Yeah, because he was before the Enzo thing. Him and Neville had that WrestleMania match, and I mean, again, they were really really good. But I thought it was strange that they had like three matches and Neville just won all of them. I was like,
Yeah,
I mean, fair enough in hindsight, it probably was the best decision not to put the title on Austin Aries. But
yeah,
at the same time, at the time they didn't know that, and it was strange that they didn't put the title on him,
yeah.
only
Well,
to then have Neville lose to Enzo Amore. It was
he's
just.
so credible. He can beat Austin Aries three times and then gets beat by Enzo Amore. Yeah, no, I get it. It's crazy booking,
And I mean,
but
that's not a knock on Enzo, because I really like Enzo. I think he's really, really funny and he's really entertaining. But at the same time, everybody knows he's not the best wrestler in the world. He's a really good talker. He's a really good shit talker, but he's certainly not on well now Pac's caliber because that guy is just absolutely incredible. The stuff he can do in the ring is unbelievable, and the fact that he got beat multiple times by the how you doing guy. It's like, well,
yeah, I know. It's that I know. Yeah, so I think like having the divisions as you said, like as cruiserweight and sort of splitting divisions based on weight or size or whatever. I think it's an old school way of looking at wrestling. Um,
you,
because nowadays and this is 2020, Mr. McMahon. Um, the small guy can beat the big guy.
yeah,
We you know what I mean? Like we don't like a certain guy because he's the biggest or he's the toughest or you know what I mean? We
yeah.
we, we just we just like him because he's sometimes we like him because he's a good guy, sometimes we like him because he's funny, sometimes we like him because he does flips. Like you know what I mean? Like and so if you really want to if you really want to go there, Vince McMahon, then have Cedric Alexander and Ricochet and Mustafa Ali and just take them all to 205 because that's what you want. You know what I mean? You might as well.
Again, Ricochet was another one. Why they didn't put when they brought Ricochet in? Why was he not put on 205 Live? And
I,
just he just fits in so perfectly, and I'll never understand why they didn't put him there.
I
Because
know.
again, it was a big name coming in from outside. Because he had obviously made quite a name for himself in the indie scene. If they brought him in and put him on 205 Live,
Yeah.
people who are fans of Ricochet would have then started tuning into 205 Live to see him. Because it's just logic, and I don't. It's just strange, man. It's strange that they didn't. But
To me, it almost sounds like they've gave up on it. Um,
yeah. Well, I mean, this is what I was going to say because it is sort of looking up for the division recently. Um, obviously they had the whole thing on NXT with good old Leo Rush winning the the Cruiserweight Championship. They kind of built that up, and that was pretty cool. And then eventually it got passed to Jordan Devlin. So sorry, it went from Leo Rush to Angel Garza. Angel Garza is absolutely phenomenal, by
Oh
the
yeah, I
way.
forgot.
And then it went then to Jordan Devlin in a fatal four-way match. Um,
But
but obviously some stuff happened and now he is stuck in the UK. So you have Jordan Devlin who is still competing in NXT UK just now with the Cruiserweight title. But then you also have Santos Escobar, if I pronounced that right. He is currently wrestling as the interim cruiserweight champion in America in NXT. Um,
yeah, and that's the thing as well. Though they've been when Leo Rush had it, he was defending it and wrestling on NXT. Um, and the actual title was a good solid part of NXT.
yeah,
So
exactly.
if we want to look into the future, maybe do we just merge them? Do we get rid of 205 Live and just merge it into NXT?
I think that is probably the best idea. I don't think they need the two titles. I think once travel bans are lifted and whenever it may be, once COVID kind of calms down and people can travel again, um, I would like to see the titles unified
Oh
with
no, of
Jordan
course.
Devlin and Santos Escobar. But
Yeah.
I think even over the two NXT brands, or even have it like, for example, the women's tag titles. Have the Cruiserweight Championship be like that, where it's not tied to any one brand, because you've got guys that fit that category in every brand. So instead of saying, right, well, you have to go to 205 Live, like, well, no, just have them defend it on SmackDown. Have a cruiserweight match on SmackDown. There's no need to separate them and say, no, these guys aren't the main roster guys. Because then if you treat it like a developmental, it'll be treated as a developmental by the fans. Because I mean, you saw that as well, like when they quote brought Mustafa Ali up from 205 Live to SmackDown. It's like, well, no, because if you're trying to tell me that the Cruiserweight Championship is just as important as a world title, then build it as that. Don't say he's promoted from 205 to SmackDown because he's already really good. Because I mean, I dread to think what would have happened if Kota Ibushi had signed during that tournament. Because they would have put him there. I know they would have put him there, and that makes me really sad. Because if you're going to treat it like a developmental, you can't put guys like that on there. You need to put developmental guys on there, and then it's just a totally different thing. Then it just becomes OVW. It's not a it's not a cruiserweight division. It's not an X division. It's just
Yeah.
the
It's
developmental brand,
it's
and nobody's going to watch it.
OVW for short guys like
I know.
Um, yeah, no, I see what you're saying, but yeah, they should maybe just merge the 205 roster in with NXT and then split them up, put them to Raw, SmackDown, whatever you see fit, and then yeah, you're I think yeah, you're right. Maybe have either the cruiserweight title stuck on just one brand or have it where the champion can go. Champion does what he wants and just
See, because this is the thing as well. I think it works to make the title a bit more prestigious and a bit more meaningful if people are actually choosing to challenge for it because that's the title they want, as opposed to this whole, oh, well, I'm short and I don't weigh much, so I'm going to challenge for that title because there's no way I'd win any other title. It's
yeah.
like, well, no, that means nothing to me then.
Well,
Like
well,
have
yeah,
them challenge it because no, that's a prestigious title. That's the title that Chavo Guerrero and Rey Mysterio and all these guys made famous. I want that title.
yeah. Well, that's the thing as well. You could have it like easy where like if the cruiserweight champion is allowed on any show, you could have him cutting a promo on like NXT and then like Rey Mysterio jumps over from he's a Raw. Is he Raw right now? Isn't he? Raw.
SmackDown. He's
SmackDown,
on
sorry.
SmackDown. No, yeah.
So he could just jump over if he's SmackDown onto NXT, beat him up or something. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They can have actual wrestlers jumping across brands just to get to this cruiserweight champion.
I
You know what I
know.
mean? Uh,
I could see as much as I'm a fan of the sort of old days where it was just Raw and SmackDown and they had the sort of brand warfare and they were
yeah.
completely separate and all that sort of stuff. They don't go all in on it now. And the way I sort of feel about it at this stage is if you're not going to go all in on it, just don't bother doing it at all. Just, there's no point. Just have guys that you say, right, well, they're going to primarily appear on this show. And, Roman Reigns is going to appear on SmackDown. Drew McIntyre is going to appear on Raw. That's fine. But this whole brand split thing, it's just dumb at this point because they're not going all in on it because people do keep jumping over. So it's like, we'll stop pretending like you're not the same company because you are. We all know you're the same company. So just stop it.
Oh God. But now you've just rendered the whole of Survivor Series useless.
Oh, don't even get me started in Survivor Series. The fact that NXT won last year and this year they weren't even on the show. It was literally a competition for second place.
I know.
Because
It's.
the defending champion brand wasn't even on the show.
I know. That's when they pushed Rhea Ripley to the moon and then did nothing.
And Keith Lee. And Keith Lee was the exact same. They made him they booked him like $1 million last year at Survivor Series. And then he didn't really do much this year. Like he was on the team, but that team just ran through Team SmackDown, the men's elimination match.
Well, to be fair though, they are booking Keith Lee pretty good though. He's
Yeah, no, they are. I see big things for him. But anyway, he's certainly not a cruiserweight though. So
he's,
back to
he's
the
not
point.
he's not. But we're enough of it basking in his glory, and let's bask in his glory.
Oh, the fact that they changed his theme song as well. Right, no, we're getting way off topic. Right. So,
Cruiserweight.
um,
Yeah.
anyway, 205 Live, yeah. They certainly shouldn't have done the show, but if they were set on creating another show, because I kind of get the appeal of it, especially when they're like broadcasting it on like their YouTube and Facebook Live and stuff, where it's free to watch. I get that. It's similar to what AEW do with their Dark show. So that's fine, but don't just do cruiserweights because that's nobody was ever going to get invested in a show that's just for cruiserweights, but not all of them. And yeah, it's I think they would have been better doing like a sort of like an X Division style thing. Words. Um in order. Yeah. But any last thoughts on the 205 live division?
No. So pretty much, the general sort of consensus seems to be should never have been a show. But if you're going to make it a show, at least make the guys relevant.
Yeah.
But the actual division itself isn't a bad idea, but it should be part of the already. They've already got three main shows. Like, God, WWE, how many shows do you want? Oh, and Lewis has malfunctioned there at my statement. I don't know.
Oh, sorry, I was yawning, but then I was trying not to yawn
Yeah,
loudly.
I'm just going like.
Just sick of listening to you talk, but
And are these people? So I think this is probably a fine place to say
yes.
I have been
Well,
Jason.
just before, but no,
Oh,
but no,
not
no,
been Jason.
before we do,
I've,
you've
I've not,
not been Jason,
I've
not
not been
yet. You've
Jason.
not,
I've not been
not
Jason.
yet.
Okay, I'm listening.
I do just want to make the point though before we wrap up talking about this division because we can't talk about the whole cruiserweight story without mentioning
I missed
the
something.
absolutely phenomenal bit of storytelling that was Drake Maverick's release and his eventual rehiring by competing in that tournament. That was absolutely fantastic. I just wanted to say that because I was really invested in that. I
Mm,
was damn near crying watching his little video on YouTube, and then
you
it
know
turned
what?
out that it was all fake. but it was still good.
What do you reckon it was fake? Do you reckon?
But apparently wasn't going to get released. It was just that was just the kind of storyline. I don't know.
I
I honestly don't know what to think about it because as much as I'd be like, oh, surely they wouldn't do that. At the same time, yeah, they totally would do that though, wouldn't they?
yeah,
That is exactly
I
what they would
think
do.
I think honestly, this is my true opinion on it. It was a shoot turned into a work because like they released the guy was like, we got nothing for you. Then they had a spot open in this tournament and was like, okay, we need to make some numbers, right? Come back for this tournament, and then kind of went, hang on, we could make a story about this. We could make a great story.
See, I think I think he did get released.
Mm,
Personally, what I think he did get released, but then I think he got rehired after that video he posted, and then they had to come up with a way for him to be rehired in kayfabe. So they did the whole sort of tournament thing. Um, but yeah, I really did enjoy it because I was totally invested in it.
it's quite
I'll
funny.
admit I'm a goddamn mark, but I loved it.
It's quite funny. I've been watching him wrestle for probably about 10 years now, and I swear to God, he actually never wrestles. Like TNA hired him as a big like X Division wrestler. He was going to be massive, pushed to the moon, and then didn't even wrestle like at all. He was just EC3's manager. That was it. That's what he did. Um,
Was he?
uh,
Did he not used to when he was in the Indies though? Did he not used to come out to Living on a Prayer?
yeah,
Sure, I've seen clips of that.
he was just called Spud.
No, Rockstar Spud.
Oh, because in TNA he was Rockstar Spud, and then he was Spud for a little while, but then he was
Oh, was
Rockstar
he?
Spud,
Oh, right. Was
and
it?
then he was maybe Rockstar Spud, this amazing wrestler. I'm just going to be a manager now, and then he moved to WWE, and I was like, that's weird because he was kind of shit in TNA, and then and then they made him 205 Live uh, general manager.
Yeah, yeah, it was strange because again, another guy that you thought because he had a bit of a following, I suppose. Maybe not so much as a following, but like
Mhm,
he had fans, and it
mhm,
was like, oh, they just made him the general manager, but he's still able to wrestle. He still
mhm.
wants to wrestle.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
why would you not just have him wrestle?
what really confused me was that TNA never ever had him wrestle, but then he wrestled an absolute epic back and forth match with Kurt Angle. So, like I was like, what? Where has he been this whole time?
No, no, it's a strange one, man. But yeah, anyway, I think that is a very good time to say I have been Lewis.
I'm not saying it now. Okay, I've been Jason.
This has been
Shoot the work.
Get the Work.